ever fall into the trap of reporting only factual, checked information, yet still end up drawing conclusions that are false? Some journalists feel it is better to come to a region with no background knowledge. But this can mean that they do not understand the complexities of the subject and can be manipulated to presenting a biased version of events. This occurs frequently in Israel, where journalists are often assigned with little preparation. Using true facts to draw false conclusions is one of Honest Reporting's 8 categories of media bias.
First of all, no one is neutral. No one is unbiased. The goal and the challenge is to make sure that our neutrality, that our bias is not in our news stories. I believe the more context that you have, the more background that you have, the better it is. Parachuting in is a problem. That's, I think, where we come up with a lot of the problems. I think that most of the foreign correspondents who are based in Israel for any length of time, and I'm talking about for a year to 3 years to 5 years to whatever, I believe that they have a much better take, they have much better understanding, they have much better contacts. The issue arises sometimes of bias or maybe much more ignorance when a newspaper or a TV network will send in their anchor or their correspondent, and the next thing you know, they're reporting on something that they really know very little about, and they're relying on local people, sometimes Palestinians, sometimes Israelis, and they really wouldn't know an inaccuracy if it bit them. And so that's where it becomes problematic.
When people put together the facts, you can't reach false conclusions. You can reach partial conclusions. In other words, settlements are growing, right? It's not a false conclusion to question Israel's desire for a two-state solution. There are significant camps in Israeli politics that are openly, publicly, and very passionately opposed to the two-state solution. And it's fair to ask, are they winning? When are they winning? How are they winning? It's not a false conclusion to say Israel in that sense, in that two-state solution sense, doesn't want peace, in the sense that it doesn't want a two-state solution. It is a false conclusion to declare that because the Palestinians feel it, and not take a look at Israeli polling that shows us, surprisingly, that huge numbers of Israelis, at least in principle, want to pull out of the West Bank. As for ignorance, ignorance is always bad. But confidence is also bad. In other words, you should not come here not knowing who the people are, not knowing the history, not knowing the wars, not knowing the narratives. You have to know those things as the ABCs of what you're doing. But you also can't come here assuming you've figured it out, which I would say most foreign reporters that I have met do feel that they've figured it out. They've read enough books, there's enough sort of assumed narratives that they speak to and are reinforced from, that they just feel that the basic, their basic understanding of what's going on is basically complete. And therefore they're not open to the biggest questions that we're asking, right? It's one thing to say, well, the Israelis and Palestinians can't seem to renew peace talks. That's the question, that's not the answer. Why? How? Where does it come from? Where is it going? So it's a kind of bias, stacking up facts that reach these very, very partial conclusions, but it's not a bias against Israel. It's a bias against journalism. It's a misunderstanding that journalism at its core is a very humble occupation. You feel like you know everything. That is the greatest enemy you have as a journalist anywhere, in North Korea, never mind, in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
One of the most damaging ways a journalist can present biased reporting is when he or she uses true facts to draw false conclusions. They literally fit the facts to support their own agendas. It's a classic example of media bias for which readers need to be on the lookout. This is just one of the several forms of media bias that we at Honest Reporting are working hard to inform you, news consumers, to be on watch for. In fact, Honest Reporting's new ebook, Red Lines, is your guide to becoming an informed, savvy news consumer. Together we can make a great difference to improve new standards of coverage for Israel. Get online, get involved. Thank you for being a part of our work.